able to vote safely. That is extremely important. It's the basis of our nation and our election system. The integrity of our elections should be paramount as we exercise our role on this committee to oversee the federal elections process, and that includes ensuring that voter rolls are kept up to date. One issue that is a particular concern to me and many of my colleagues, and one that I will continue to be vocal about addressing, is the propensity for poorly maintained voter rolls to undermine public confidence in election results, especially with the increased prevalence of mass mailing ballots like we saw in the 2020 election. In fact, a member of my staff received three during the last election cycle. The ballots did not belong to my staff member or anyone else who lived at that address, and they had lived at that address for several years. And at the residence for the elections in the jurisdiction which he received the ballots, they did not live. Basically, he lived in D.C., and these ballots came from Maryland to someone else's name. And again, he had lived at that address from way beyond the previous election. To be clear, these were not ballot applications, but live ballots. And in this scenario, if this scenario that had played out, now he took pictures of these ballots and he showed them to me, and he properly destroyed those ballots. But if this scenario plays out in states across the country, the potential for millions of ballots to be sent out indiscriminately without people requesting them and to the wrong address creates potential for fraud. I mean, he very well easily could have filled out these three ballots that weren't his. I mean, he's from Georgia, lives in D.C., received a Georgia ballot he requested, but received three ballots from Maryland he did not request, two other people's names. And this really brings doubt to the integrity of the election systems. Now, my questions, Ms. Phillips, your foundation brought enforcement action against states for failing to conduct comprehensive list maintenance as required under the National Voter Registration Act, as the ranking member has brought up. In your opinion, why are certain states reluctant to routinely conduct voter list maintenance?
In my opinion, the pressure has come from various interest groups not to maintain the rolls so the pressure is to do nothing. It's also at times difficult to conduct list maintenance. It requires diligence, it requires consistency, and there may be lack of training, various reasons why election officials would not conduct list maintenance.
Okay. I mean, one thing you didn't mention was funding. Have you ever encountered that maybe it's a lack of funding to do this?
Absolutely. And the problem is that having unclean rolls only makes the financial burden greater when you're mailing out pieces of mail to individuals that should not be registered to vote. So it's one of those tasks that should be a priority in order to trim budget in other places.
So you mentioned that there's pressure from outside groups, which we are fully aware of in Georgia. There's a lot of groups putting a lot of pressure on the election system on both sides. But you mentioned that they are putting a lot of pressure on some elected officials or government officials to not purge voter rolls. I know that in some cases there's threats of lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera. What impact does a state's failure to conduct their list maintenance have on the integrity of our election process?
As you mentioned, it is devastating to voter confidence. The example of one person receiving multiple ballots, especially for individuals that do not live in that location, those effects can be felt far and wide. So it is a voter confidence issue, and it also is just a misallocation of resources for these election officials that have, in many cases, very limited budgets anyway.
Well, thank you. And one last question for you. Are states required to coordinate with state or federal agencies to verify voter information when conducting their list maintenance?
No.
Okay. Turning to Ms. Laskin, your state use accurate rolls are appropriate and necessary for election administration. registration and see problems with various available, but don't mention alternatives. If states need, what databases are they use to maintain their list?
Representative, I think I mentioned earlier today that automatic voter registration, for example, is one solution, one assisted program that could provide assistance with maintaining accurate voter rolls, as well as ensuring that voters aren't improperly purged from the rolls. In addition, having good notice and sufficient time to voters who may have been purged from the rolls inaccurately to correct the record is absolutely critical in this regard, and is not always provided in the way that it should be provided, as is the case in Indiana, where we have stayed successfully multiple times.
Well, and making sure that only voters are the ones casting the vote is important. I could go through multiple stories of, even in this last election, people that have moved as much as a decade before started receiving ballots again from the state they moved from. And I've got numerous reports of that. And even people that are family members who called me and said, hey, I just want to let you know, I moved from state X 10 years ago. I just started getting a ballot again in this election, which was ironic that it was this election that they got the ballots that they had never, that they hadn't received since they left, which tells me it was a voter list issue. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for.
And the reason why this is important, because Maricopa County, that's the beginning. There's widespread evidence of this. Mainstream media doesn't want to pay attention to it. This is nothing like the 2016 election. Where the Russians hacked it. The Russians hacked it. The Russians didn't hack, or I'm not saying that they didn't hack. They probably did, But this election was severely rigged. 2020. Oh yeah, and I'll probably get a strike for making this video, for commenting and stuff, but it's the truth, and Forbes is actually a pretty decent source of information. And I know some people will be like, oh, it's mainstream media. It's more of like capitalism, it's like, it isn't just about the economy and such. And so, I think Forbes is reputable in my opinion, and more reputable than NBC and CNN. So, and more reputable than Fox in a lot of ways too. So, if I'm wrong about that, please, feel free to say something. But, actually, hold on a second.
Good morning, Arizona and the rest of the world. Here we are in Maricopa, Arizona, where we have the audit of the century underway. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to call it, the audit of the century. So what exactly is happening? So down at the Coliseum, many of you know that underneath the hood of the Coliseum, we have 2.1 million ballots being counted and analyzed. And then another component of that audit is to actually do canvassing. And you might ask, well, what is canvassing? Canvassing is going door to door, and we essentially ask people 3 questions. Number 1, did you vote? Number 2, what method did you use to vote? And number 3, did you receive any extra ballots? 3 completely benign questions. When we knock on a door, if a person does not want to participate or answer, that's okay. But here's the thing. You may find that when we go down the list of names of people to ask those 3 questions to, you might find that you actually have phantom voters at your household. Yep, that's right. Many people have names listed on the voter rolls as residing in their home, and they don't even know it, because there's no place for us to go online and type in your address and find out who exactly it is that you have registered to vote at your house. So this canvassing is an extremely important portion of the Arizona audit. And this canvassing is actually something that people from around the country want to get started on right away. So one thing, many of you know, I have, even though I've been offered tons and tons of money, I have not taken a dime. I got a couple super sweet gifts, like I got May Arizona Be the First Domino to Fall on a plaque, and I got The Best Is Yet to Come. And then I also have that wonderful Loving Life. So yeah, I'm just being totally upfront and letting you know what small gifts I've received. And then I got a domino. This is a domino right there. And then I also got some lavender to probably help keep me calm. But as far as the work being done, we do not take money. So we turn money away because it's important for me for this to be a true grassroots effort.
So yeah, pretty much. Forbes is actually the only one that's taking things serious about reporting some of this stuff. That's why I have a little bit of respect for Forbes, and because it's important to have a mainstream media connection, just to like, hey, look, this isn't some alt-right wing conspiracy theorist or whatever else. This is an actual thing. So, anyways, we're getting our country back. Come hell or high water. Take care, be safe, be kind, stay strong. Love y'all. And happy Mother's Day. I think today's Happy Mother's Day.